Am I audible now?
Yes, and audible.
Okay. I think it is audible now, no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So yes, so I'll just show you how the chapter 7 ended, and then we'll so in the 7th chapter. So Krishna described all these things. The last thing is, Lord Krishna described that those people who are pious, they have led their life in a pious way for many, many lifetime, they get free from delusion, right? Others are deluded by dualities, happiness and distress, pleasure and pain, insult and favor, like that. And because of this duality, they can never know the Supreme Lord. But those who have acted piously, their life is free of sins, they can understand the Supreme Lord and engage in his service with determination. So that was the verse we discussed, from delusion to devotion. And the last two verses Lord Krishna describes about, there are some people who take shelter of Supreme Lord to get free from the cycle of birth and death, right? And they also get their desired destination by worshipping the Supreme Lord. And the last verse Lord Krishna says is this: Sadi bhutam adi daivam mam sadi yagyam chaye vidu prayan kale picha mam te vidur yukta chetasa. Those in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation of the demigods of all methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. So this will arise a question in the mind of Arjuna. So therefore he will now ask a question in the next chapter, and that is how this next chapter begins. So Arjuna uvacha, because Krishna had described so many different words, adi daivam, adi yagyam. So all these things now Arjuna is asking, what are these things? Arjuna uvacha किम तद ब्रह्म किम अध्यात्मम किम कर्म पुरुषोत्तम आदिभूतम च किम प्रोक्तम आदिदैवम किमुच्यते. So Arjuna inquired, "O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are fruitive activities? What is this material manifestation? What are demigods? Please explain this to me." So Lord Krishna described so many words, like Adhyatmam, Adi Bhutam, Adi Daivam. So all these words, Arjuna is asking, what are these things? So now, first of all, in the first few verses, one more verse asking, Adi Yagyam Katham Ko Atra Dehe Asmin Madhusudana Prayan Kale Cha Katham Geyosi Niyatatmabhi. So basically, Arjuna is asking many questions. So in the first verse, you saw that question. And this next question he is asking is, who is the Lord of sacrifice? And how does he live in the body, O Madhusudana? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? So basically, his question is, apart from other question, very important, that how can your devotees remember you at the time of death? Right? Because death is a very crucial point. Whatever we have done throughout our life will be tested at the time of death. So it is important that a devotee, he remembers the Supreme Lord at the time of death. So, or anyone, if he want to be successful, he has to remember the Supreme Lord. So he's asking, how is it possible, right? How we can remember you at the time of death. So Krishna will first answer the first question in a very short part, and then second question he'll elaborate throughout the chapter. So first is answering the first question. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Sabhavo Adhyatma Uchyate Bhuta Bhavodbhavo Karo Visarga Karma Sangita. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman or Jiva, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the self. Action pertaining to the development of material bodies of the living entity is called karma or fruitive activities. So he's telling the first question: what is karma, what is Adhyatma, and what is Brahman? Brahman means the Jiva, and who is eternal and transcendental. And then the next question: Adibhutam charo bhava purusaschadi daivatam adhiyagyo hame patra dehe dehe vritamvara. So he's telling what is this nature, right? So the nature means that which is always changing. We call it also as uh, the nature of material world is it is always changing. So it is called Adibhut. And what is Adidai? Adidai means the universal form of the Lord, which includes all the different manifestations like the trees, ocean, uh, sky, all the demigods are his part and parcel, everything included. That universal form is called Aditya. And the Supreme Lord himself, who is the super soul in every heart, is called Adi Yajna. So this complete the question first. Now he will begin to describe how we can remember him at the time of death and everything related to that. So Antakale cha mam eva smaran muktva kalevaram yah prayati samadbhavam yati nasti atra samsayah. And whoever at the time of death, time of his life, whoever at the end of his life puts his body remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. So now we'll see from the slide. This was just a connection between the two chapters. So Arjuna asked some question and Krishna is describing all this. So basically he will describe in the whole chapter remembering Krishna at death. How is that remembrance possible? By pure bhakti. And what is the result? If we remember Krishna at the time of death, we go to spiritual world. And apart from that, if we don't go to spiritual world, the another is we have to return back to material world. What is the difference between them? Right? How is one better and which is better? Deal. And how supremacy of bhakti in attaining Krishna. There are so many ways to attain liberation, but bhakti is the supreme, stands supreme among all these means. So first, Arjuna asked this question: how your devotees remembered you at death, right? So Krishna tells this sloka that we just remember, that we just chanted. So we'll just recite again. Antakale cha mam eva smaran muktva kalevaram yah prayati samadbhavam yati na asti atra samsayah. So here Lord Krishna is saying that Antakale means at the time of death. Cha mam eva, one should remember mam means me, and eva means only me, not anything else. That means at the time of death, whom we had to remember? Krishna and Krishna alone, nothing else. So Smaran Muktva Kalevaram. At Kalevaram means at the time of living body. So one should remember Krishna at the time of leaving his body. Then what will happen as a result? Yah Prayati. That person will go where? Sa Madbhavam. He will attain my nature, the spiritual nature. Yati Nasti Atra Samsaya. And of this, there is no doubt. Atra Samsaya. There is no doubt about it. Right? If someone remembers Krishna and Krishna alone at the time of death while leaving his body, he will attain a spiritual nature. He will not come back to material world. So there are few stories. A story of Vrittasur. Maybe I'll just tell you about this. And this is the story of Bharat Maharaj. We saw that, this is a general law that whatever we remember at the time of death, that we have to attain. Now the story of Vrittasur is very, very, very interesting and very mystical also. So I'll just tell you this story. Just let me check if There is some. Hmm. No, there's nothing. Okay, no problem. So actually, how this story goes is that once upon a time there was a devotee. This is a long story, and this can have many lessons. So I'll just portray the whole story, and then we'll discuss about the lessons. So once upon a time there was a king named uh, there's a king named, in his previous birth he was Chitraketu. There was a king named Chitraketu, and this Chitraketu, he was having a big kingdom, maybe the entire earth or more, like that. And he was having everything that we can imagine: the kingdom, the palace, um, so many of army, treasury, so many queens, everything he had that one may desire. But still he was not happy because of only one reason, and the reason was that he was having no son. So once uh, Narad Muni actually happened to come to his kingdom. So he very nicely welcomed Narad Muni, and then he welcomed Narad Muni, and he nicely take care of him, offered him obeisances and everything. But Narad Muni could see that he is not very happy, and he is lamenting because he has no son. Huh? So then what happened, that Narad Muni asked that why you are unhappy, right? And then he said that, you already know, because uh, you are a devotee of the Lord. For you, what is hidden, everything you know. But still, because you are asking, let me tell you what happened. So he said that I have so much of, uh, so much of kingdom, everything, but only thing, I have no son, and without a son my life is completely miserable. So he tried to give him advice about devotion service, how devotion to Supreme Lord is completely transcendental, it is the highest perfection in life. But he was not ready to hear, because his mind was completely absorbed in another thought. So he could see that Narad Muni, and therefore Narad Muni said that, okay, all right, no problem, I will do a yajna, and what you do, you can I will give you a fruit, and that you give to the queen. Okay, and then queen will have a child, a son. And so he was very happy. Oh, wonderful. But he said that there is one thing, remember that this son will be named Harsasoka, which means that this son will bring you happiness and he will also bring you distress. So then he said, okay, no problem. And he began to think that, okay, even if there is problem, he'll give me unhappiness. Maybe he'll not follow my advice or anything happens. But it is better to have at least son who is giving trouble than to have no son. So like that, he thought and said, okay, no problem. And then what happened? Uh, Accordingly, he got a son. He did a yajna according to the advice. And then um, he got a son. Now, this uh, king Chitraketu was having many queens, but he was not having son with any of them. So when this particular queen, when she got a son, then she became like, the center of attraction for everyone. And the king would always visit her, and he would always take care of her, talk with her, and in this way he would neglect other queens. So as this is the nature of the world, that people become envious. If you have something and others don't have, others will become envious. So then what happened, that all the other queens, they began to feel uh, neglected and envious of this particular queen, because she was getting all the attention. And then what happened, they planned that, what is the reason for our this condition. They thought that this boy which is born, he is the cause of everything. Before he was born, everything was all right, we were all equally loved by the king, but now he's not giving us attention. So what to do? They planned that we'll kill this child. And somehow they fed poison to the child when he was sleeping. And first of all, when this news came to the king could not uh, could not take it. He just fainted. And when he would wake up, again he would understand and he would run toward the inner chambers to see the queen and the son. And again, after walking few steps, again he would faint. Again he would get up. Again he would go and faint. Like that, when he reached and he saw that his son is dead, he could not believe his eyes. And he was just talking with the all his hair was scattered, all his crown, everything was scattered here and there, and he was completely into tears. And he was not believing that my son is no more. The queen and the king, they were the queen was blaming, how can destiny be so cruel to us, how can God be so cruel to us, right? And like that, they were lamenting again and again so much. And then at that time, who appears? Narad Muni. And then Narad Muni says that, I told you that this will be the cause of your, what to say, this will be the cause of your happiness and distress. So then what happened? Oh, I have got something. Let me share this. Just 1 minute. So what happened? When Chitraketu's first wife Kritdyuti gave birth to a son, the co-wives of Kritdyuti became envious, and later they administered poison to the child. You can see here. And then what happened? Narad Muni and Angira Rishi, they came and they instructed the lamenting king about the spiritual truths, how we are spirit souls, part and parcel of God, and how we have eternal relation with the Supreme Lord. And these things, relationships, are just like temporary positions we get in this world. And because the king was so much lamenting, Narad Muni, by his mystic powers, he made the child come back to life, right? And then the small child came back to life, and then he began to instruct his mother and father in transcendental knowledge. So he began to say that he said that, oh my dear child, so said, my dear father, which child you are talking about, right? So he said, I am your father, right? You are my son. So he then said that, father of which birth? I have taken so many births, right? I have taken so many births, and I have so many father and mother. So like that. And then he said many other things. I'll just take a call. Like that, he began to instruct Maharaj Chitraketu in transcendental subject matter. And then he could understand that, my lamentation is not proper. I should inquire about the spiritual truths, my spiritual position, my eternal position. And then he, by the grace of Narad Muni, he became very serious in pursuing spiritual life. And Narad Muni gave him a mantra. And he said that if you properly practice this chanting of this mantra, you'll be able to see the Supreme Lord, face to face. And by chanting it properly and following the rules and regulation given by Narad Muni, actually Maharaj Chitraketu could get the darshan of Lord Sankarshan, which is another, expansion of Lord Krishna. So when he got the, darshan of Lord Sankarshan, he also got promoted from being a earthly king to being a Gandharva, a heavenly king, right? And Gandharvas are very good at singing. So he became the king of Gandharvas, and he was traveling on aeroplanes. Gandharvas would travel in aeroplanes going from one place to another, and there's so many, consorts would be there. So he was traveling in the aeroplane with so many of his wives, and he was chanting the names of God. And one day what happened, that while he was traveling, he saw that Lord Shiva is giving a discourse on God, and Mother Parvati is sitting on her lap. So seeing this, he didn't want to offend, but somehow or other, he, just in a way of appreciation, he thought that, only Lord Shiva is competent to do that. See, so he's so, I mean to say, so much sober, so much controlled, that even while Mother Parvati is sitting on his lap, he can speak on God without being disturbed. So, thinking that, he laughed in appreciation, but this was not very much well received. Everyone could understand. I can say no one said anything, but Mother Parvati was very much angry, and he cursed the king that, may you become a demon in the next life. So he didn't counteract this. He came down from the aeroplane, bowed his head to Mother Parvati, and said that I accept this curse because I know that whatever happens in my life or anyone's life is by the will of the Supreme Lord. So I don't blame you for the curse. I wanted to, uh, make fun of any one of you. I was just trying to appreciate the position of Lord Shiva. And so Mother Parvati was angry, that, do you think that you are the only one? There are so many sages like Narad Muni, Vyasdev. All these great sages are not saying anything, and you are trying to instruct us. So you become a demon. But later on, she also, understood his intention, and she became astonished that, I cursed this person, devotee of the Lord, and he is not at all disturbed, but rather he is, trying to get my blessing. So she blessed that, my dear child. That was a very wonderful conversation. And Lord Shiva then tells that, just see the devotees of the Supreme Lord. Even if they go to hell, they are not at all disturbed. This is also a very wonderful thing. I'll just show you that verse which Lord Shiva speaks. So this is from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto. Canto. This is this is sixth canto, and this is section you can also read if you get time. You can actually understand all the conversation. Just told in brief. The instructor. So here Mother Parvati curses him. So he was traveling. Yes. So he said, Chitraketu said, my dear mother, with my folded hand, with my own hands folded together, I accept the curse upon me. I do not mind the curse, for happiness and distress are given by the demigods as a result of one's past misdeeds. Deluded by ignorance, the living entities wander in the forest of this material world, enjoying the happiness and distress resulting from his deeds, past deeds, everywhere and at all times. Therefore, my dear mother, neither you nor I am to be blamed for this incident. Like that, he says so many things. And, oh mother, you are now unnecessarily angry, but since all my happiness and distress are destined by my past activity, I don't plead to be excused or relieved from your curse. Although what I have said is not wrong, please let whatever you think is wrong be pardoned. Right? And then after that, he goes back to his abode. and left. So, and then all of them, then Lord Shiva speaks, because Mother Parvati is little, thinking that, oh, maybe I have done a wrong thing. He's such a great personality and I have offended him. So Lord Shiva says, my dear beautiful Parvati, have you seen the greatness of the Vaishnavas? Being servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari, they are great souls and are not interested in any kind of material happiness. So he's just telling about the glorious position of devotees. Devotees solely engaged in devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayana never fear any condition of life. For them, the heavenly planet, liberation, and hellish planet are all the same. For such devotees are interested only in the service of the Lord. So in this way, he tells about the greatness of devotees. So then what happens next? We'll go ahead in the story. So then by the curse of Mother Parvati, he becomes a demon. So, and there is another story going on parallelly that somehow let us not go into that story. Somehow let us understand that he became a big demon, and he came out of a yajna. How that yajna was performed, that is another story. So somehow he came from the yajna, okay, and he was so huge that he seemed to cover the entire everything. So therefore his name became Vrittasura, one who covers everything. Vrittasura. So he was so huge that he covered the entire sky, right? So therefore his name, you can just see all the brahmanas sitting and they are conducting this fire sacrifice, and somehow this demon is produced by a little mistake of mantra chanted wrongly. And then actually this Vrittasura was to be killed by the hands of Indra, right? So no one is able to defeat him, right? And all of them, all the demigods are very, very fearful that how this demon will be killed. So then Lord Vishnu actually tells that you should not worry about this demon because he is my devotee. And you make a vajra out of the, you can say, the bones of, what do we call that? Bones of the Dhichi Muni. And if you make a vajra out of it, that thunderbolt will be able to, by that thunderbolt, you will be able to kill this Vrittasura. And then that fight also which happens between Vrittasura and Indra is very, very wonderful, right? So Vrittasura is trying to fight with this Indra, and Indra is trying to fight with his weapons, and whatever weapons he's throwing, Vrittasura is just like, very, very huge. Indra is just like a small child in front of him, and he's breaking all the all the weapons that he's throwing. And Indra also becomes very fearful that maybe I will not be able to kill this demon, he's so very powerful. And then Vrittasura says that, oh, you are like a coward, you are running away from the battle. Don't you know that Lord Vishnu has given you a astra, has given you a weapon who is especially empowered by Lord Vishnu, and it will never fail. Use that astra upon me and kill me, right? And in that way he's trying to encourage Indra that you please kill me by using this astra, because this is specially empowered by Lord Vishnu. And so then Indra gets his confidence, and following his words, he uses this vajra to cut the head of Vrittasura. And Vrittasura, first of all, he chops off the arms and then the head. And Vrittasura, now he's remembering the Supreme Lord at the time of death, and like that he goes back to the spiritual world, like that. So there is many story ahead also, so all these things will not discuss. But the important point why we discussed this story was the law that whatever one remembers at the time of death, that he will attain without fail. So here Vittasura is remembering the Supreme Lord at the time of death, and although he's a demon, although he's being killed by Indra, he goes back to his spiritual world, right? Although he became a demon by the curse of Mother Parvati, but he went back to the spiritual world because he was remembering at the last moment of death the Supreme Lord. Similarly, we see this story of Bharat Maharaj, right? That he was remembering what he was remembering at the time of death. He was remembering the deer which he has lost and he was so attached to at the time of death, and as King Bharat, and therefore what he became in the next life, he became a deer. So Krishna tells about the general law that what is the destination after death. So what is this word? This is also very famous sloka. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajati ante kalevaram tam tam evaiti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavita. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. Yam yam means whatever things you smaran, you remember. Tyajati ante kalevaram, when you are leaving your body. Kalevaram means leaving your body. Ante means at the time, at the end time. When you're leaving your body, whatever you remember, whatever things, tam tam evaiti kaunteva, that thing you will attain, O son of Kunti. Sada tad bhava bhavita. Sada means always. That bhava, that nature you will attain after death. So whatever you are remembering at the time of death, the same exact nature you will attain after death. That is the law of last thought. So like that. So therefore what we should think? So we should think of Krishna always. So we'll always attain Krishna at the time of death. So you can just see this sloka. I'll just get it. Okay. So what we should do then? What we should think? We should think of the Supreme Lord. Because if we think of Supreme Lord, then we will attain the Supreme Lord at the time of death. Now you may ask a question, but sir, I have to do my studies, I have to, and other people have to do their job, right? So how they can think of Krishna? If they always think of Krishna, who will do other things? So therefore Krishna says, I'm not asking you to, or Arjuna may ask a question, right? If I have to think of you always, how will I fight? So therefore Krishna is saying this very important verse, right? This is applicable to all of us who are doing so many other activity. At the same time, we have to be focused on Krishna. So this is a verse which we can apply practically in our lives. Tasmat, you can also repeat after this. Tasmat sarvesu kalesu mam anusmara yuddha cha mai arpita mano buddhir mam evaisasi asamsayah. So here Lord Krishna is saying, Tasmat, therefore, Sarveshu, at all times, Kalesu, time, at all times, Mam Anusmara, you remember me, Yuddha cha, and fight also, right? That means at all times, you do your duty and remember me. Not like that. You remember me and do your duty, right? First remember me, Mam Anusmara Yuddha cha. That means You remember me, at the same time you do your duty also. You fight also. Fight remembering me, like that. Mai arpita. How is that possible? This is possible by Mai arpita. You offer to me what? Mano buddhi, your mind and your intelligence. So when you offer something, when you offer your mind and intelligence, then you work for that person. Like suppose a mother is always thinking of his child. So even though she may be, doing the household chores, but she's always thinking in her mind about her child. Oh, my child must be returning at this time. So I have to do this, I have to do that, or maybe I have to submit the fees. So many things. Always thinking of child, but still doing all the other activities very expertly. So therefore, Krishna is also saying that if you have to work for me, then you have to offer your mind and intelligence to me. And if you work like that, what will happen? Mam evaisasi asamsaya. You will surely return back to me. You will surely come back to me, right? Even at the time of death. So this is, the sloka which we can apply in our lives. We have to do so many things in our lives, but if we do everything following this principle, then there is no chance of getting diverted. We can pass the final exam of death if we follow this principle. So we have to practice. It may be difficult, but while you're studying, you can think that how this study is related to the Supreme Lord, right? How you should study so that God will be pleased. For what purpose you should study that God should be pleased, like that. So we see here that this is Srila Prabhupada, and even at the time of death, what he is doing, how Srila Prabhupada left his body. He left his body translating Srimad Bhagavatam, telling about Krishna, right? So we understand that how the great souls, they leave their body remembering God, and therefore they attain the nature of God, right? So generally I was okay, there's so many things. Okay, this is sloka. We'll just see the meaning. 118. So this is the sloka. This was so because those who have dedicated life to the transcendental topics of the personality of Godhead, of whom the Vedic hymns sing, and who are constantly engaged in remembering the lotus feet of the Lord, do not run the risk of having misconceptions even at the last moment of their lives. So those who always chant the glories of the Supreme Lord and dedicate their life for Him, always remembering Him, at the time of death also, they can easily return back to the spiritual world without any misconceptions. So there is another story of Ajamila, right? How Ajamila at the time of death remembered the name of Lord Narayana and how he was saved by chanting the names of Lord Narayana. So that is another story which will take time. So I'll not discuss this today. So therefore, the conclusion is that we should live our lives in a way that we can always think of the Supreme Lord. And this is possible if we live our life centered around God. Like we see in Vedic times, people used to center everything in their lives around God, right? Whatever occupation they had, whatever other business they would do, they would center it around God. There would be so many festivals throughout the year, and the center would be God. Just like we went to a temple in South India, this temple, there are festivals approximately 330 days in the year, right? So out of 365 days, they have 330 days of festivals. So every day, almost a festival or preparation for it. So in this way, people's life are centered around God so that they can never forget God, right? You'll see that in Indian culture, this is, although people don't know it now, but that was the tradition. They would keep the names of their children like, uh, Krishna, Radha, or so many other names you'll find, any name you find. Mohan is another name of Lord Krishna. Kesava is another name of Lord Krishna. So names of the Supreme Lord, right? They would keep as the name of their children. Narayana. So many names you'll find that in India, most of the names are names of the Supreme Lord, so that they can always chant these names and remember him. That was the purpose. Similarly, they would keep the name of their home as Sri Niketan. Sri Niketan means the house of goddess of fortune, right? Or they would Ram Nivas, right? Like that, they would keep the name of their house also related to God. In their house, they would make a temple, right, at the center, and then they would leave thinking that this is a center. God is the proprietor of this house, and we are living as his servants around. So everything would be centered around God. Similarly, there would be so many festivals, right? Like when the crop is, harvest comes, and the first harvest is uh, given to, offered to the Supreme Lord, and then there is festival, and then everyone would, celebrate, and like that. So this was the culture that we have now forgotten, but this is how we find it in India. So the purpose is, you'll find in India, Indian culture, this is the thing. And there's so many things I am remembering. Like you see that in previous time, there would not be any big building, right? There would be only one building in the city, and that would be very magnificent, and that would be temple. Like in a village also, you see, there would be the temple, which will be center of the village. Every day people would come in the morning, do some arati, kirtan, learn about Supreme Lord. Like that, they will spend there. Then they will go to their offices, whatever work they had. As farmers, they would go to field, and administrators would go to their different places, and then return back in the evening, again engage in devotional service. In this way, their lives are all centered around God, because the purpose of the whole Vedic culture is to remember God. Because whatever we remember, that only we'll remember at the time of death. Whatever you do throughout the whole life, we remember at the time of death. And therefore, we should uh, align our lives in a way that we can remember God. So as how we can apply this in our life is, the place we live, we should have pictures of God, right? We should offer prayers to God every morning and evening, chant prayers. There are some standard prayers we can remember, like Mangal Arti, Narsim Arti, Tulsi Arti, and there are many other prayers glorifying the Supreme Lord, that we can offer these prayers to the Supreme Lord every morning and evening. Then we can chant his holy names on either on hands, on japa beads. So, and whatever work we do, we offer to God. So in this way, our whole life remains, conscious of God. So then we can perfect our life, even we may be in different positions. So we'll discuss further about the story of Ajamila, and how this remembrance is possible. What are the practical ways? Okay, why we should try to go to spiritual world and not come back to this material world? All these things we'll discuss. The structure of the universe also is given here. Okay, so now we'll conclude for today. If you have any questions, you can ask, or we'll chant for a few minutes. Okay, so any questions, you can write in the comment box, chat box. Okay, so you could understand everything that we discussed about uh, today's, whatever we discussed in today's class. Okay, so let us chant. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So like that we can chant every day. I hope you are chanting every day. And thank you
Yes,
for
sir.
joining today's session.